This is an ambitious new plan that invests $3.8 billion of new funds across three pillars: protecting nature, building Canada well, and valuing nature and mobilizing capital. Nature is a force for our well-being. When we're protecting nature, we're protecting Canadians, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the rivers we swim in. That's why today we are putting in place enduring mechanisms to achieve that goal of protecting 30% of our lands and waters by 2030.
I don't know what he wants to say with that, guys, to be honest, because Canada has some of the best quality of air in the world consistently. I don't know how much better we can do this. I don't know what's the point, to be honest, because we're just killing our industry. We're killing our competitiveness. I'm not saying we should go and, have, dirty air and all of that, but I think that, a lot of these carbon policies that we're implementing just don't make sense. But today is April 2nd. My name is Miloš Krajčnik. This is the Canadian Sovereigntist. I have this article here today that I want to cover. CUSMA's back on the table, guys. What's interesting here is that Canada has spent 37 years, guys, restructuring its entire economy around continental free trade with the US. CUSMA is the legal framework that holds that relationship, guys, together, and it's up for renewal July 1st. And Trump's trade representative went on Fox Business 3 weeks ago and said Canada is lagging behind Mexico in these negotiations. Canada's trade minister's response is that he's confident. Guys, and let's see what this confidence actually means. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc says he's confident Mexico will not quit the USMCA to sign a one-on-one trade agreement with the U.S. and played down reports that Canadians are lagging the Mexicans when it comes to negotiations over renewing the trilateral pact with Washington. USMCA says all three countries are supposed to meet this year and by July 1st, 2026, confirm in writing whether they intend to renew the pact, which would extend the deal for another 16 years. If all parties do not, then a 10-year countdown begins to the expiry of the deal, with yearly reviews until 2036, and renewal is still possible. The signatories can also withdraw with 6 months' notice. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has signaled it wants to renegotiate parts of the deal. Mr. LeBlanc last visited Washington March 6th to meet with the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, Mr. Trump's trade czar. Nearly 2 weeks after those meetings, Mr. Greer told Fox News that Canada was lagging in the USMCA renewal talks. We're having talks separately with Canada, but we've moved along with Mexico, Mr. Greer said. Canada is behind on this. And guys, this is a great place to stop and kind of unpack what's going on here, because Trump's trade representative went on Fox Business and said that Canada is behind, guys. That is not a leak as an anonymous source. This is a man running the actual negotiation process on the other side. And he's publicly saying to everybody that Canada is behind. We're behind Mexico. LeBlanc's response is that he is confident, based on the conversations with Mexican cabinet secretaries and Carney's conversations with President Sheinbaum, that that's not a rebuttal, guys. It's posture. It's just more political posturing. That's all they ever do. It's when the counterparty in this negotiation is publicly saying that you're behind. Confidence based on conversations is not evidence of the progress itself. And guys, why would we believe Mexico in this situation? It doesn't make sense. Canada and Mexico, we don't even have $100 billion in trade. If we had like $500 billion in trade going between Canada and Mexico, we actually diversified that kind of trade alignment, because we're in a free trade agreement with Mexico as well. Then it would be a little different. Then we could say, hey, let's go actually talk to the U.S. because, we actually have a pretty good trade system going on ourselves. No, but we don't have that. We don't have that. Both Mexico and Canada are completely dependent on this trade with the U.S. We've literally based our economies for exporting into the U.S. And so we're subordinates of the U.S. because of it. What James Greer did is not a press release, guys, designed to prevent panic. The question Canadians should be asking is not whether LeBlanc is confident. It's why Greer felt it was worth saying on national television that Canada is behind. Mr. Greer told Congress last December he wants to push Canada and Mexico to address specific U.S. grievances, which in the case of Canada include improved access to Canadian dairy markets and online streaming rules. He also said he would look to shore up a common continental market by pushing for stronger North American content rules for non-automotive industrial goods and more collaboration between the three countries on economic security related tariffs, export controls, and investment screening. He rejected the notion that Canada's deal to break with the US and scale back steep tariffs on imports of Chinese-made electric vehicles, a deal that Trump sharply criticized on social media, has impaired USMCA talks. Mr. Carney agreed in January to reduce tariffs from 100% to 6.1% on 49,000 Chinese-made vehicles in exchange for Beijing reducing levies on Canadian canola and other seed products. Mr. LeBlanc said he's confident from his conversations with the U.S. that this does not remain an impediment to USMCA talks. He said Americans understand this EV deal was relatively smaller. It was a small arrangement, guys. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. It's just 50,000 cars. Don't worry about it. We made a time-limited sectoral agreement with the government of China, very important for agriculture and seafood industry in Canada, not much different than some of the bilateral agreements the United States struck with respect to soy producers in the U.S. And guys, we need to unpack this because it's a bunch of baloney. It's a bunch of baloney coming from the Canadians. LeBlanc is comparing Canada's Chinese EV deal to U.S. bilateral soy agreements to minimize that impact, guys. That comparison doesn't hold, guys, because the U.S. soy agreements on its own terms with no geopolitical dimension, guys. Canada made a deal with China specifically to reduce dependence on the U.S. while simultaneously negotiating a CUSMA renewal with the U.S. So it's not the same. Trump criticized it publicly on social media as well, guys, and LeBlanc had to specifically reassure the U.S. it was not an impediment to the negotiation. Guys, the need for that reassurance itself is evidence that it is an impediment. As Canada imported 49,000 Chinese EVs built with forced labor. And I'm going to make a point of that, with forced labor, because just the other day, we had Liberal MP, floor crosser Liberal MP Michael Ma of Chinese descent. His first House hearing that he did was to create a hearsay environment around forced labor practices with the Uyghurs and the genocide of the Uyghurs themselves. That's what he did on camera. And it's funny because he comes in to help the Liberal Party, win the majority. He does it. And his first thing is to defend a government that stands for every practice that the Canadian people stand against. We passed it in law. We have acts against child forced labor policies, and we've passed a law accepting the Uyghurs as having a genocide committed to them. And now we have Michael Ma of Chinese descent defending that same Communist Party of China labor practices on television. I don't know what to say, guys. But we've also irritated our primary trade partner, guys, in this same process. And now we're asking that same trade partner to renew the most important trade framework in Canadian economic history, guys. And LeBlanc says that Americans understand it was just a small arrangement, guys. Greer said Canada is behind. One of those characterizations is accurate. Someone's lying. LeBlanc gave no indication of when he might return to Washington, but he said he intends to talk to his U.S. counterparts shortly. I exchanged messages with Ambassador Greer again last week. I'm looking forward to a discussion. I would hope in the next couple of weeks we're finalizing that opportunity. He said the Canadian team is working behind the scenes, including Chief Trade Negotiator Janice Charette, who has had a number of conversations over the last few weeks with her counterpart in the U.S. Trade Representative's Office and Canada's ambassador to the United States, Mark Wiseman, who he said has been very active and updates me and our colleagues almost daily on discussions he's having with senior U.S. officials. Mr. LeBlanc said one-on-one agreements could arise from Canada's or Mexico's talks with Washington, but they would not replace the USMCA. There may very well be bilateral agreements between two countries on issues specific to those two countries, but the framework of a trilateral agreement remains very much the efforts of both Canada and Mexico, and I would even say the United States in those conversations. We're going to stop right here and unpack all of this, guys, because the July 1st deadline is 3 months away. LeBlanc's last visit to Washington was March 6th. That's almost a month ago. 3 weeks later, he's hoping to schedule a call, guys, with Mr. Greer in the next couple of weeks. What are these timelines? We have no time. Guys, that's not a pace of negotiation that's on track, guys. Canada has a West Coast pipeline deadline it's missing. We've missed that April 1st deadline. We have a CUSMA renewal deadline in 3 months on July 1st. That the other side said the US is saying that we're behind. The pattern is consistent. We're laggards. We create the frameworks, we set the deadlines, and we always arrive late to the game. While our ministers are always telling reporters we're very confident of the results of what's going to happen. Guys, the difference between the pipeline deadline and this one is the scale of the consequence. Missing April 1st, the pipeline deadline, is an export project. Arriving at July 1st, weaker than Mexico on the renewal of the agreement that governs $1 trillion in annual trade is a different category of failure, guys, entirely. And LeBlanc's confidence is not a negotiating strategy. It is a communication strategy, guys. Those are not the same thing 3 months from apart from the most important trade deadline in Canadian economic history, guys. And to put this into perspective, Canada's annual GDP is $2 trillion. We have $1 trillion of trade with the US because of this free trade agreement. Half of our economy is based basically with the US, even more so because we have a bunch of American companies in the US as well. And why all of this matters to Canadians, guys, because Canada spent 37 years building its economy around free trade with the US. Every major investment decision, every major manufacturing plant, every supply chain, every agricultural export market was structured around the assumption that continental access was guaranteed. CUSMA is not a trade agreement Canada can walk away from or renegotiate from a position of strength. We cannot. We're subordinates in this whole situation. It is literally the lifeline of the Canadian economy, depends on in the short term and the midterm, while it attempts to diversify towards Asia and Europe. Guys, this context is what makes LeBlanc's confidence so inadequate as a response, because Canada is 3 months away from a deadline on the most important trade framework in its economic history. The other side of the negotiation, the US has publicly condemned, saying that we're behind. The trade minister's last Washington visit was 3 weeks ago, and he's hoping to schedule another one soon. He doesn't even have a timeline. It's ridiculous. If the CUSMA renewal goes badly, if Canada arrives at July 1st weaker than Mexico, if the Chinese EV deal has genuinely damaged the negotiating relationship, the consequences don't show up in a press release, guys. They show up in plant closures, job losses, a weak dollar, and an economy that spent 37 years optimizing for a market that is now renegotiating terms of access. Canada has no short-term alternative, guys, to that market. LeBlanc's confidence is not a plan. It's a hope. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys liked today's episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please leave some comments in the comment section below. This 100% affects everybody in Canada directly. Absolutely. And holistically. So I'd love to hear from you guys what you guys think. Stay informed, stay curious, and God bless Canada.
This is Canada. Maple syrup and like Cabin say. Kick your ass all hockey season, Now teach me riding horses, Yeah.